The Travel Transformation Podcast is proud to be partnered with Give the Goodness Global, an amazing global outreach project helping families in need all over Southeast Asia and beyond. Please check them out at Instagram.com/Give the Goodness Global today. And now on to the podcast episode.
Welcome to the Travel Transformation Podcast, the podcast that explores the life-changing potential of solo travel, intentional travel, and location-independent working. Whether you're an aspiring digital nomad or simply want to boost your confidence through epic travel experiences, I'm here to motivate and inspire you to go after all your wildest dreams. I'm Jessica Grace Coleman, author, travel transformation coach, founder of the Travel Transformation Company, and your host for the Travel Transformation Podcast. Travel changed my life. Now let's change yours. You ready? Let's go. Welcome to the Travel Transformation Podcast, the podcast where we talk all things travel and all things transformation. I'm your host, Jessica Grace Coleman, and this is a quick solo episode entitled How to Be a Digital Nomad When You're an Introvert. And I just want to point out that I'm still in the Basque Country, still recording from my bedroom, and one of my housemates is in the corridor having a business meeting, and I can hear her. I don't know if you'll be able to hear her because I've got a very small mic and it's not as good as my usual mic I use when I'm at home, when I'm in the UK. But because it's small, I'm hoping it will pick up my voice and not her voice. So hopefully you'll be able to hear me okay, and hopefully you won't be able to hear her in the background, but let's see how we go. I've only got a small window to record this in between doing work, and there's a Skillshare, a mastermind later. There's always a lot going on in this house, in this co-living, so I'm just recording it while I can, and I didn't want to wait another hour or two because then something else is happening. So hopefully you can't hear my housemate in the background. So let's get to it. So I am a digital nomad. I'm not a full-time nomad because I spend a lot of time in my home country, although I still move around when I'm in my home country sometimes, which totally counts as being a digital nomad if you want to start that way instead of immediately jumping on a plane and heading abroad, because that can be a bit daunting. And it can be very daunting as a whole lifestyle, really, when you're an introvert, especially when you're a sort of quiet, shy introvert like me, and especially maybe you feel a bit anxious about traveling on your own, because if you're a digital nomad, you're probably going to be traveling on your own for at least some of the time, even if you then stay in co-livings and hostels, things like that, and get to know other people. But if you're an introvert and you're a digital nomad, I would recommend staying in co-livings and hostels all the time, because it can be very draining, very fun, but very draining. So I guess that's the first tip. If you do want to do this full time, I highly recommend splitting your time between things like co-livings in hostels and maybe getting an Airbnb by yourself, or doing house sitting, solo activities, or if you have friends that you want to go and visit and you can sort of chill out there a bit and it's not going to be as intense as a co-living all the time, because I love coming here, but I've been here nearly 4 weeks now. And last year I did the same. I did 4 weeks and then I went straight to Javier, to the Sonico main house, and did like 3 weeks there. I was meant to be there longer, but I cut it short because I wanted to visit Valencia, and also I just needed some alone time. Like I needed my own room. I was sharing in Javier, and it was 7 weeks of co-living and doing all the co-living professional events and social events. It was very, very draining to someone like me who's an introvert, who needs their own space, who needs to relax and recharge and all that kind of thing. So the first thing, if you're considering becoming a digital nomad and you're an introvert, is to plan what kind of accommodation you will be staying in and see if you can mix it up with it. So I find that I lived on my own for 3 years and it was great. I loved having my own space, being able to do what I wanted to do, but it did get quite lonely at times. So I wouldn't want to stay in Airbnbs on my own for 12 months a year. It would just be too hermity. It would be too much. Even if I was then going out and doing group activities and things to meet people, I think I'd want to mix that up with, like I said, co-livings, hostels, things like that. So look at your accommodation options. There's Airbnb, there's hotels, hostels, co-livings. There's things like Workaway, where you will stay with like a host family, or just stay in accommodation with another group of people and work in exchange for room and board. That's a good way of meeting people. But I think that can be pretty intense too, especially if you've got your own job that you need to continue while you're doing it. You can go and visit friends and family and see if you can work there for a bit. There's lots of different ways of doing it. House sitting is great because that is free accommodation in exchange for looking after pets. And I love animals, so that's a win for me. Just research all your accommodation options and figure out how you're going to do it. So if you're going full time, figure out how you can mix it up and maybe do a month here, do a month there, or do a month in a co-living, then 2 weeks on your own, and that kind of thing, so it doesn't get too overwhelming and too daunting. Also, maybe plan like a few months ahead so you're not worrying about where you're going next, but maybe don't plan too far ahead because then it can also get overwhelming and daunting. And also you might meet people on your travels and decide to go traveling with them or go and visit them in their home country. So it's good to leave sort of breathing space in your calendar for that. If you're going to be a part-time digital nomad, then it doesn't matter too much. You can sort of, if you live alone, you can go and stay in a co-living, and then when that becomes too much, you can go back home. There's no rules about this stuff, unless obviously you work for a company and they have actual rules about working remotely and working for different countries. So if you do work for someone else, obviously check that first. But this episode is more about being an introvert and how you can do that as a digital nomad still, even though it seems like maybe it's more of a thing for an extrovert. An interesting thing is that I thought it would be mainly extroverts in places like co-livings because it is very sociable. It's very go there to meet people and hang out with people. But I found a pretty even balance, I would say, between introverts and extroverts in these places. And so there's always going to be like someone or a group of people you can find who are similar to you in terms of how introverted they are and who will probably want to do more quiet activities instead of getting drunk and being loud every night, although I won't lie, that is me sometimes. It depends how much I've drunk. So in the co-living house, we've got introverts, extroverts, ambiverts. And in the last couple of weeks, I was part of the introvert club, which was me, Basil and Bjorn. And it got started last year with Barbara as well. And we're basically, when everyone is getting drunk and doing limbo competitions in the garden, having dance parties at 3 a.m, we'll be in the corner playing cards or playing Jenga or just talking over wine. And that is just as fun to us. The other stuff is to them. I'm not saying it's either or, like sometimes we'll join in with the dancing and maybe the limbo thing, but I've got a dodgy back, so not so much that for me. And other times they will join in and have some card games or just talk. So it's not an either or thing, but just find your tribe, I guess, find your people. And that can help you when you're in a place like this. Or just sit, like hang out with and not talk to. Like that's an introvert's dream. Just go to the pub, have some drinks. You don't feel forced to talk. You don't feel like you have to make conversation if you don't want, because they're just happy to sit in silence or just to talk occasionally, and like that's fine. So find your people and book accommodation with this in mind, but know that if you do go somewhere that's very sociable, you probably will be able to find people who are still quite introverted and like you, so that's cool. So what else can we do as introverts? I find like a lot of introverted travellers might also be quite anxious travellers. That's not true of everyone, of course, but it's true of some people. Even extroverts can be anxious travellers. So sort of thinking about this in the lens of introverts, but also people who might just be anxious in general, whether that's social anxiety over travel, or just general anxiety. So one thing I talk a lot about is having a space to retreat to. So if you can get your own room, you can't always, but these days a lot of co-livings have their own rooms. Even a lot of hostels these days, you can get a private hostel room, like if it's a sort of nice boutique hostel. Just somewhere you can relax and retreat to when you need to and recharge however you need to recharge, reading, listening to music, sleeping, watching TV, talking to friends, whatever it is. Your own room, I cannot say enough how good it is to have your own room when you're an introvert in these places. Similarly, plan your downtime. These environments can be very fun, but they can be very draining, as I mentioned. So plan for breaks, plan for early nights if you need them. If you're traveling a lot, make sure you plan for days in between where you can just rest, because traveling itself can be exhausting, as we all know. And if you add to that all the social anxiety of meeting new people constantly and hanging out with them and doing self-development stuff and playing games and putting yourself out there, it can be absolutely exhausting. Like right now, I am exhausted. A lot of the people in the house are exhausted. We're all on that kind of level because we've all just been doing so much. So make sure you have like breaks throughout the day where you can retreat and get away from people if you need to. And also in between accommodations, in between travels. If you can do slower travel, that's great. So you're not just burnt out all the time. And take advantage of doing solo activities when you're traveling. So whether that's walking around a museum on your own, going for a walk in nature on your own, if you have a hobby like painting or drawing, a lot of people in the house here have been drawing and painting in the evenings. And if you can just take yourself off to a place in the garden or your room and do that for a bit, that can sort of help recharge as well. Also, if you do journaling, meditation, anything like that, self-reflection can really help you when you're in sort of intense environment with lots of people, or if you've been traveling a lot.
Are you ready for adventure? Are you ready to become location independent? Are you ready to create your ultimate dream lifestyle? Then I have just the thing for you. The Flip the Script Academy with me, Jessica Grace Coleman. My online academy, which is bursting with life-changing courses and resources, is for anyone who feels stuck in life, wants to make a change, would like more meaning and purpose in their life, wants to shake things up, especially after the pandemic, wants to start or grow a business or side hustle they can run from the road, wants to incorporate travel into their lives in all kinds of different ways, or is simply ready for an epic transformation. For more info, just head to traveltransformationcoach.com/academy. And now, back to the Travel Transformation Podcast.
And remember, this is all about being a digital nomad. So on top of all the social stuff and all the workshops and everything else you do, you've got to get your work done at some point. So boundaries are huge. I've been a lot better at this year than I was last year. I've been coming to my room and working on my own up here a lot more when I know I get distracted otherwise. And saying no to things, like I felt last year that I had to go to every workshop, every Skillshare, especially every mastermind, because that's all about helping a person going through a certain issue. And you want to help your friends, but sometimes you've just got to work. Sometimes you've just got to rest. And being able to say no to things is a game changer without feeling guilty. That's the main point. So yeah, joy of missing out is the new FOMO, fear of missing out. For example, last night I came to bed at about 11:30 because I was very tired. And a lot of the times we've been staying up till like 2, 3. The other night I went to bed at 4:30, 5, and I was just like, what am I doing? I'm not going to be able to function tomorrow. So I went to bed at 11:30, and then at about 11:45 I heard everyone running around, getting changed, like talking excitedly, and I was like, what is going on? And I kind of pieced together that they were all going to jump in the pool around midnight. And the pool is cold here in the day, so at night it's going to be very cold. And let's wake up the people who are asleep. And I was just like, nope, there's no way I'm getting out of my nice comfy bed to jump in a freezing cold pool and drink gin outside when I've decided to go to bed early so I can get work done tomorrow. And I did not feel like I was missing out. I felt nice and cozy in my bed, and I felt very happy with my decision. So it's just coming to the realization that you don't have to do everything. Even if people are out there having fun, you don't have to do it just because they are. Do things on your own timetable, get your work done, rest when you need to, and really work on those boundaries, because it's so important when you're a digital nomad and you're trying to balance work and play. Also, if you can, choose off-peak travel times. So if you're only a part-time digital nomad, consider going on traveling in the shoulder season, which is like the quieter seasons. If you're going out for the day, have your own time, let you set your own times for work, then consider going places in the week, maybe instead of the weekend, where it's going to be a lot quieter, less crowded, and so you can have a more relaxed experience. Use apps and online websites and things to help you as an introvert travel like more easily. So I use Google Street View a lot, especially if I'm traveling on my own somewhere and I've never been to the place. It's a different country, I don't speak the language. It's a lot less daunting if you go on like Street View beforehand. Maybe start at the airport or wherever you're getting to, or train station, and figure out exactly how you're going to get to the next place. So whether it's a train, a bus, a taxi, an Uber, and then make sure you know the sort of street of the accommodation you're staying at so you can recognize the street when you get there, and so you recognize the building outside and you know exactly where to go. That eliminates a lot of stress, I think. And I use, Google Street View all the time. Just be kind to yourself. Remember, it's okay to say no. It's okay to take breaks. It's okay to go to bed early when everyone else is staying up till 3. It's okay to spend time alone. And it's okay to do what makes you happy and to do what you need to do to get you through the workday and to get all your work done, basically. It's going to be different for everyone. Don't feel like you have to do exactly what other people are doing. Also, if you have really strong anxiety while traveling, I would suggest starting small. So if this is solo female travel in particular, or just solo travel, if you've never done it before, start small, go away for a night somewhere, go away for a weekend somewhere on your own, and build up that solo travel muscle. And if you want to be a digital nomad, you can do the same. You can go away for a couple of days while you're working and see if you can balance it, do the work and play and explore the area. If you can do that, try it for a week. If you can do that, try it for 2 weeks. You don't have to immediately say, I'm going away for 12 months. I'm going to be working the whole time, because that's just too much and you won't be used to it. And yeah, also, if you practice self-care of any kind, make sure you do that while you're away, because some people do it at home every day, and then as soon as they start traveling, the whole routine goes out the window. And if you can try and at least keep some of your routine every day, like if you have a morning routine, if you do exercise, if you do meditation, if you do journaling, if you do modern day journaling, like talking to ChatGPT about your problems, like anything like that, if you can try and do at least 1 or 2 things from your usual routine when you're traveling, you will feel so much more grounded and so much more yourself and so much more tethered, I think. So that's definitely something to think about. And just make sure you have like a support system if you are anxious about traveling. Make sure you keep in touch with your friends back home, your family, your partner. If you're traveling solo without your partner, make sure you just keep in touch with people from your normal, air quotes, normal life. And yes, just make sure that if you need to, you have the support there, because it can be overwhelming, like I said. And travel coaches, I've had so many travel coaches on this podcast. Just go back and listen to pretty much any interview I've done with a travel coach, and you will see how they can support you while you're away as well. So that's always an option. If you are totally, really, really anxious about traveling or have really bad social anxiety, I would highly recommend seeking professional support. Just get some guidance, get some help. If it's really stopping you from going traveling or from doing all these social things because it just seems like too much, professional help like therapists, counselors can help so much. Yeah, those are just a few tiny points on how to be a digital nomad and be an introvert. And yeah, just to go over them again, basically it's picking the right accommodation, picking the right type of travel, having your own space, having your own room if at all possible, and knowing what helps you rest and recharge, and make sure you do that. Have boundaries. It's okay to say no. Like embrace JOMO, the joy of missing out. Make sure you do whatever you need to do to get your work done, to make sure you get enough rest, to keep healthy, to keep your routines, plan ahead if you need to, like with Google Street View, all of that good stuff. And yeah, if you really are struggling, but you really, really want to try this lifestyle, start small steps and ask for support if you need it. Those are just a very few tips I've been able to come up with, like I say, on a bit of a clock here, because there's Mastermind in a little bit, and I want to go to that and help one of our housemates. She's thinking about a career change, and we're just going to help her brainstorm and come up with some ideas and give her own advice and experiences, and hopefully help her come to a decision. So that's also a good thing. If you go to a co-living, you could do a mastermind on how to be an introvert as a digital nomad. Find out that way. But yeah, so that's what I've got to say on this episode. I hope it helped. Let me know if it did help you. You can DM me on Instagram at Travel Transformation Coach. And until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Travel Transformation Podcast with me, Jessica Grace Coleman. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review, and spread the word if you have friends or family who also want to transform through travel. For a chance of winning one of my books in ebook form, please review this podcast on Apple Podcasts and send a screenshot or just your name to info@traveltransformationcoach.com or at Travel Transformation Coach on Instagram. I'll be picking a new winner each month, and you can choose between any of my non-fiction titles, including Write Your Life, Write Your Year, and Intentional Travel Transformation. You can find out more about me at traveltransformationcoach.com, where you can also get your free travel transformation guide. And until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye.